Hello there, YouTube. Before we get into it, please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Tap that little bell so you get notified every time we go live. I do apologize for one of our latest starts of the season, but there is just so much action going on.
Hey, man, the starts get later and later as the season goes on. We all know it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we're going to talk about all of Tuesday's action. Up next. I was having a pretty catastrophic night in terms of fantasy baseball, and I was going to come on here and complain and cry to you guys. But then I realized that I didn't have any Miles Mikolas. So
that's it. I was going to say, how much Miles Mikolas do you have?
0. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Wednesday, August 10th. Frank Stampfl joined by Scott White and the returning Chris Towers. Today on the show, we do have a bunch of pitching duds to talk about, hitters that have been slowing down over the past month or so. So much action to get to. Chris, you're back. How is life? How was Lady Gaga? Tell us all the deets.
Oh, Gaga was incredible. She puts on a heck of a show. I got to go to Nationals Park for the first time.
How was it?
Getting out of Nationals Park late at night is impossible. There are no Ubers in that area. I don't know what was going on, but that was a bit of a trek. But it's great. She played the Joey Gallo song. She wore like an alien helmet while singing it. It was wild.
But
it was amazing.
Did she use Joey Gallo lyrics?
No.
Oh. Wow.
She did this whole her set's 5 acts. It's like a play, although there's no narrative structure to it whatsoever, at least none that I could follow. But between one of them, she comes out in this alien headdress, like a xenomorph kind of thing. And then she sits down and starts playing Shallow while wearing it, and then just takes it off. It was just for that one song. It was It was a real weird bit.
Was it she puts on a great show. She's like, yeah, you think I'm gonna do something weird here, and I'm gonna sing this.
I'm just gonna sing this country ballad.
Yeah,
yeah. That sounds about as Lady Gaga as it gets, but I'm happy.
It was a good time.
You had a great time there, Chris. All right, let's get into Tuesday's action.
Oh my goodness gracious!
All right, Chris, we're coming right back to you because you have a very interesting stat that I would like you to reveal to the audience.
Yeah. Kyle Schwarber hit 3 batted balls today, 110 miles per hour or harder, which is a lot. I think he had 17 for the full season coming into today. So that's pretty good. And he went 2 for 4 with a double. So another good game for a guy having a good season. Here's a partial list. It's kind of like a full fantasy lineup of batters who have not hit 3 balls over 110 miles per hour this season. Freddie Freeman, Jorge Polanco, Jared Walsh, Kyle Tucker, Brandon Drury, Ian Happ, JT Realmuto, Francisco Lindor, Marcus Semien, Nick Castellanos, Gleyber Torres, Alejandro Kirk, Tyler O'Neill, Jesse Winker. That's not the full list, obviously. That's just a partial list of some relevant names who have hit fewer balls over 110 miles per hour than Kyle Schwarber did today. So there's your fun fact of the day.
That is indeed.
He hits the ball hard.
Kyle Schwarber does hit the ball very hard, has been awesome this year after a, very slow start in terms of his batting average, but obviously the power has just been tremendous as we expected. The beefcake for our very own Scott White, way back on Valentine's Day. So I think we all
still feel the love there.
Love it. Absolutely.
Still feeling it for Schwarbs.
All right, Scotty. You get, I can't say it, but
no, I think you actually have the breadstick. Frank.
Oh, I have the breadstick.
I think you actually do. Well,
no, but this is the breadstick that fell on the floor and
yeah.
This is the one that you don't want.
Okay, so I'll just let you go first, Frank, because Miles Mikolas is the one who made me say, "Oh my goodness gracious!" beyond any other player performance today. So go ahead, Frank.
All right, so let's take it away here. Miles Mikolas, with likely the worst start of any starting pitcher this season, does not finish 3 innings at Coors Field. 14 hits, 10 earned runs, 8 hard hits allowed, and the exclamation was that he left with a runner on base, and then Packy Naughton came in and gave up a 3-run homer. So that is how Miles Mikolas gets to 10 earned runs in this start. His ERA jumps from 2.92 to 3.50 in this start alone. And we know who Miles Mikolas is at this point. He doesn't get a lot of whiffs. He pitches to contact. He typically does a very good job limiting hard contact. But when you are a pitcher that pitches to contact, and you go to Coors Field, you could be prone to having a blow-up start. I mean, look, obviously nobody saw this start coming, but yes, you could be prone to a pretty bad one, and that's exactly what we got here.
I feel like it's been a while since we've seen somebody get Coors fielded this badly, coursed this badly, whatever the proper verb is. And I actually had Miles Mikolas as a must-start 2-start pitcher in spite of the trip to Coors Field. So got some egg on my face there. Yeah, 292 to 350 in one start, as you pointed out, Frank. That's what happened to Mikolas's ERA. That's hard to do for a guy who's been healthy for 4.5 months or 4 months at least. Minus 20 was his score in head-to-head points leagues
on CBS. Minus 20.
That's
20.
pretty bad.
That is
That's not what you want.
I will point out. So he gave up 14 hits. 12 of them were singles. Average exit velocity 87.1 miles per hour. So it does seem like, yeah, he kind of got coursed here. I didn't watch the game, so I don't know if there was some bad defense happening that contributed to it as well. But generally speaking,
it's kind of like Patrick Corbin this season, where like the Nationals have the worst defense in baseball. I'm pretty sure by outs above average, and he's had some bad luck in terms of BABIP. That happens when you pitch as poorly as Patrick Corbin has this season, or as Miles Mikolas did today. You probably earn a lot of it too. It doesn't happen without both. It's tough though. I always struggle with a game like this because, like, when you say that a guy is going to regress all season, you just keep saying it all season, and it doesn't happen. And then it finally happens. It's kind of like, well, I told you so, but it's also like you were just waiting for something like this to happen. You looked dumb for 4.5 months. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I mean, this shouldn't change how you view Miles Mikolas. This was always like he's a 350-ish ERA pitcher, probably a little worse. That's where he's at now. That's probably what he'll be moving forward. Unfortunately, you just got a 10 spot dropped on you on a Tuesday night.
Yeah, look, it's obviously rough to get hit with all of the regression in one start. Maybe over time, periodically, you get hit with a couple of starts where the ERA rises quite a bit. But even before this start, his xFIP was 3.84. His FIP was 3.68. So again, I think you're right, Chris. He's probably more of like a mid-threes ERA, which is not bad. That's a quality pitcher. So
valuable pitcher. Yeah.
Even with the start, we're not dropping Miles Mikolas. It sucks that it happened.
It would be too late.
In fact, if trading is still allowed in your redraft leagues, I would just try to like buy extremely low after this one, but probably not going to happen. Anyway, that is Miles Mikolas. We'll get to the Rockies in just a little bit. How did they wind up with all these runs? But before we do that, Scott, oh my goodness gracious for you.
Vinnie P, baby. Vinnie Pasquantino finally had his day. Took 2 games in one day to have his day. Doubleheader. He homered in each game of the doubleheader, 3 for 7 overall. Didn't strike out between the 2 games of the doubleheader, which, that's what he's been not striking out all along. That's part of the reason why I've kept the faith on Vinnie P. Average exit velocity coming into the doubleheader, 92.1 miles per hour. So he continued to impact the ball in a really hard, make really hard contact. And, if he keeps doing that, if he keeps striking out 15% of the time, hitting the ball in excess of 90 miles per hour with regularity, good things are going to happen. I'd like it to be, I'd like it to go on for a little longer than just one day before I say he's here. This is his time. Because I remember Alex Kirilloff had that 2-homer game and then was basically never heard from again. And I don't think that's going to happen with Vinnie Pasquantino. Obviously, there were some extenuating circumstances there with Kirilloff and his wrist. I think Pasquantino is profiles to be a really good hitter, and I'm hopeful this is the start of it. I wish I had him in my 10 sleeper hitters for this week, but I have been careful not to drop him in all but one of the leagues where I had him, a really shallow one where I don't have any hitters on my bench, so I had to let him go in that one. But otherwise, I've held on to Pasquantino, and I hope it still pays off here over the final 7 weeks of the season.
All right, with Vinnie P, he is down to 56% rostered in CBS leagues, and rightfully so. I mean, before this game, he really was not playing well, and even with this, with these 2 great games here on Tuesday, he's now batting .237 with only 5 home runs in 37 games. But there are first basemen who are more rostered than him, so I just wanted to point out those names and just get your opinion. I mean,
I'm sure there are a lot are more rostered than him that I'd rather dump for him. Yeah,
the 3 that stand out to me: Joey Votto, Jared Walsh, Josh Naylor.
Yeah, I'd rather have Pasquantino than any of those.
I agree.
I mean, Walsh especially. Like, I'd drop Walsh for just about anybody at this point. I still think there is some value to Votto and especially Naylor, but I'd rather have Pasquantino.
Yeah, I would probably push back on Votto a little more. He does have an 850 OPS since the All-Star break. It's very low batting average, but I do still think he's a useful player. And Pasquantino, like, there are definitely things to like about him. Scott went through most of them. Quality of contact, amount of contact, those are both very good. I do think he is someone who has a chance to consistently underperform his peripherals, like the expected stats and all that stuff, just because he is incredibly slow, 12th percentile in sprint speed. He hits an inordinate number of his ground balls into the pull side. He's gone the opposite way 9.1% of the time on ground balls so far this season. So he's incredibly shiftable. And so that combination
matter next year, though.
What's that?
Not going to matter next year.
They can still do some shifting.
Well,
but yeah, I mean, hopefully it will be less of a thing. But even still, I mean, when the defense, like if you're that predictable in terms of the quality of contact or the direction that you hit it, I think there's going to be room for him to be, probably not 50 points south of his expected WOBA like he is right now, but to the point where he might be frustrating because the numbers might say he's elite and he's just good. I worry that might be in his future. But that's not to say he can't be good.
All right. That is Vinnie Pasquantino. The Rockies wound up with, let me get this straight, 16 runs on 22 hits scored in that game against Miles Mikolas. The ones who did the most damage, CJ Cron went 2 for 5 with his 23rd home run. He added 5 RBI. Randall Grichuk went 5 for 5 with his 12th home run. 3 runs scored, 3 RBI for him. Brendan Rodgers went 4 for 5 with 4 singles and 3 runs scored. And then Elihuris Montero, a prospect with the Rockies here, has played well since being recalled, and he went 2 for 5 with 2 runs scored as well. Scott, specifically here, Randall Grichuk, last 30 games, he is batting .300 with 4 home runs, 23 RBI, and 1 steal. That's really good and surprised me. I didn't realize how well Randall Grichuk has been playing, but he's 53% rostered, could be out there. Talk to me about maybe re-adding him if he were dropped, and Elihuris Montero in deeper leagues if you need a corner infielder.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're talking deeper leagues in both of these cases. This is kind of what Randall Grichuk has done over his last 30 games is kind of what we were hoping he'd do at the start of the year. But to just take his best 30 game stretch and say, all right, it's all going to happen for him now, I think I find that a little hard to believe. And he is, let's see, he started playing more regularly again. For a while there, his playing time was in question, but it looks like he's playing again. I think in 5 outfielder leagues, Randall Grichuk has some value, but in 3 outfielder leagues, probably not so much. Elihuris Montero, I think he's more of a scout team guy than somebody you can plug into your lineup just yet. I do think I do like the contact skills, and he at least showed he could hit for power in the minors. I think he has the potential to be somebody who benefits greatly from Coors Field. And I like that he's getting more regular playing time now. But he got a couple singles today. I don't know that is enough to quite move the needle for me yet. But I'm keeping an eye on Elihuris Montero. Sure.
How about Ryan McMahon hitting the second longest homer in the majors this season tonight?
Wow.
495 feet.
Jeez. Coors Field. Wow. That was, look, to his credit, I think he's played a little bit better recently, but
yeah, he's got like a 760 OPS since the All-Star break, which is fine. He's got like an 800 OPS at home, like a 600 OPS on the road. So it's been an even more extreme season than normal for him.
Still baffling to me. I know we mentioned this recently, Scott, but Ryan McMahon, 88% rostered on CBS. It's
don't understand
something in like the projections where people keep adding or just won't let go of Ryan McMahon.
The 88% of people who drafted Ryan McMahon quit playing after a week.
Potentially.
I mean, he's a third baseman, and I know that's been a tough spot to fill, but like,
yeah,
if you're playing him at corner infield or he's just a bench option, drop him for Vinnie Pasquantino now. Like, there's no excuse for that.
And if you're playing Ryan McMahon at second base or middle infield, then I'm here to tell you that you can drop him for Gene Segura, who is still just 71% rostered. And that will move us into some more waiver wire hitters from Tuesday. Segura had 2 hits, including his 7th home run. And in case you forgot, he was incredible early on in the season. Really, the first month and a half, he was your Fernando Tatis replacement. And he was basically playing like Fernando Tatis. That's how awesome Gene Segura was. Now, I don't expect him to keep that type of production up, but this Phillies offense is really, really clicking right now. Chris, Gene Segura, 71% rostered. I feel like, regardless of format, he needs to be 100% rostered.
Yeah, I mean, he's what, third, short, and second eligible right now? So
Segura? I think he might just be second base. I could be wrong, though.
Just saying, okay.
Yeah, I think at least on CBS, he's just second.
Okay.
Yeah, just second base
So,
on CBS.
That does limit it. In like points leagues, he's probably pretty close to a starting caliber second baseman moving forward, but I don't think it's such a slam dunk that I would say he's a must roster in those formats. But anything with middle infield, yeah, I think he's worth having. Yeah,
for example, Luis Arias is rostered in more leagues. Rather have Segura. Same thing with Gavin Lux, Colton Wong, Thairo Estrada's. He's been a good player all season, but I would rather have Gene Segura over him as well. Same thing for Josh Rojas, though he is very versatile. Yeah, I just feel like Gene Segura needs to be up around like at least 80-90% at this point in the season. Keibert Ruiz went 2 for 3, and this was part of my downfall here on Tuesday. My disappointment is that I held on to him all season in the podcast points league, one catcher league, Keibert Ruiz. I drop him this weekend finally for Carson Kelly. What happens? He has his best game of the season. Keibert Ruiz went 2 for 3 with a double dong. He's now up to 6 home runs total for the season. So not much. He's batting 247 overall with a 666 OPS. Makes a lot of contact, just 11% strikeout rate. But the contact that he makes is not very good. 87.6 mile per hour average exit velocity for Keibert Ruiz. He's down to 66% rostered. And Scott, somebody on Twitter earlier on Tuesday night asked me, Keibert Ruiz, William Contreras, or Yasmani Grandal. Who would you take of those 3?
I think I'd take. I'd have to check Grandal's numbers again since coming back. I know season-long numbers are still terrible. I don't know how much he's improved since coming back. But I think regardless of scoring format, I'd take William Contreras for the upside. He's been playing more consistently lately. Travis d'Arnaud isn't even available right now. And I just think there's more upside there. But Keibert Ruiz, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's been the 11th just because he strikes out so infrequently. He's been the 12th best catcher in points leagues, even prior to him hitting 2 home runs here. So he may have climbed actually past Travis d'Arnaud and as the 11th best in points leagues. So it's a good format for him. And I think he's a viable option still. I don't necessarily blame you for dropping him for the hot hand in Carson Kelly, but I wouldn't have blamed you for sticking with him either.
The concern I have for Ruiz long term, he just hasn't been able to hit lefties so far in his career. Like 606 OPS against them this season, average exit velocity 84.8 miles per hour.
Yikes.
He's yet to hit a home run in 111 plate appearances against lefties. It's still early, but that's the one thing I look for with like young switch hitters, especially when they're struggling like that, is like, what does it, are they actually switch hitters? I guess would be the best way to put it.
Well, if we want to have a long-term discussion about Keibert Ruiz, like I'm not at all confident he's going to be an impact bat at catcher. I just think he has this superlative talent of making contact that in certain scoring formats is going to make him always usable.
It's very Christian Vasquez-y.
Vasquez, I mean, a more extreme version of it, but sure.
Yeah, Yasmani Grandal, by the way, entering Tuesday's action where they played a doubleheader. I assume he played at least one of those games. He played 9 games since returning, and he was batting 176 with 2 extra base hits, 0 being home runs. It's just been a brutal run for Yasmani Grandal this year. So I think I agree with you, Scott. I agree that William Contreras has the most upside. I still kind of question, what does the playing time look like when d'Arnaud is back? He's supposed to return this weekend. Obviously, that's up in the air. But if Contreras played every day, it would be a slam dunk. I just kind of worry.
Play every day.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean.
So let's see. It had been kind of a recent development, but Contreras over the last week plus, I guess, was starting 2 of 3, and d'Arnaud was starting 1 of 3, and Contreras, let's see, at one point he started 4 straight because he got to start at DH there. So it does seem like they're making a concerted effort to get him in the lineup more.
All right, that is William Contreras. We're taking him over Keibert Ruiz and Yasmani Grandal in one catcher leagues at this point. Tommy Pham went 2 for 4 with his 13th home run, back-to-back games with multiple hits and a home run in each. He has now led off 3 straight games for the Red Sox, and he's 61% rostered. Chris, I know recently he went through a stretch where he didn't hit a home run for like 30 games. This is Tommy Pham we're talking about. But if he's leading off for the Red Sox ahead of Rafael Devers and Xander Bogaerts, I kind of feel like he needs to be more than 61% rostered just in principle for that reason, like leading off for the Red Sox. What do you think about Tommy Pham?
I mean, he's fringier in the 3 outfielder leagues just because those rosters are shallower. But I think a big thing is you just look at, the 7 games he's played since getting to Boston. He has 31 plate appearances in those games. That's quite a lot. That's like a 700 plate appearance pace over 162 games. That's kind of the whole thing when you're hitting leadoff in a really good lineup, or even a pretty good lineup like Boston's, is you're just going to get a lot of opportunities. And in a points league, I think that's probably going to be enough to push him into fringe starting territory. I mean, that's probably where he's been all season in head-to-head points, but to keep him there for sure.
Yeah. Tommy Pham, I mean, he's an incredibly streaky player, but
I guess the only question is, like, is there any chance that Kike Hernandez coming back in the next couple of days messes that up? Because he's supposed to be back like this weekend, right?
Is he? I feel like he was shut down recently.
Oh, did I read it wrong then? I saw it.
But I haven't seen an update in a while, so I could be behind on this situation.
I know
he begins a rehab assignment tomorrow, so he could be back. I mean, that given how long he's been out, it's probably going to be another week or so, but that would be the only question I would have.
Okay.
I know from this place I hang out called twitter.com that Red Sox fans, I mean, to the degree you can trust that twitter.com is a reflection of the real world, which it often isn't, but at least what the Red Sox fans are intimating there is that they are out for Jarren Duran's head. And so I suspect, because of the many miscues he's made, he would be the one to lose his job if ever that scenario came up, rather than Pham. Whether Pham in the leadoff spot or not is
I don't worry about Pham losing his job.
Yeah. All right, so that is Tommy Pham again. Let's move into some deeper ads, hitters that did something of note here on Tuesday. Oscar Gonzalez went 2 for 4 with a double and 2 RBI. He now has a hit in all 6 games since returning to the Guardians, including multiple hits 3 different times, batting .299 on the season. But his power upside is limited because he hits so many ground balls. That is Oscar Gonzalez. Bubba Thompson with the Rangers went 2 for 4 with his 3rd steal in 5 games. Lots of speed in the minors this year. Something like 50 steals overall. And then Jake McCarthy, another one for speed. He's been playing for the Diamondbacks recently. He went 2 for 4 with 3 RBI, and he now has 7 steals, with 4 of those coming in the last 9 games. So Scott, in deeper leagues, if you need a 5th outfielder, what do you think of these names? Oscar Gonzalez, Bubba Thompson, Jake McCarthy.
My favorite is Oscar Gonzalez. I'm still pretty high on Oscar Gonzalez in general. I get the sense the Guardians are too. Since he's come back, they've basically benched Nolan Jones. They DFA'd Franmil Reyes. Yep. They're showing a lot of confidence in Oscar Gonzalez, who is another player whose like quality of contact is very high, like beyond what even his home run total is. And I think that, just looking at his minor league track record, it would suggest also there are a lot more home runs to be had here. And he's kept the strikeout rate under control pretty well. Doesn't walk at all. So I think there's a clear limit to Oscar Gonzalez's ceiling, but I do think there's a potentially a low OBP impact bat here.
All right. Last point on Oscar Gonzalez. Chris, I know something that you mentioned a lot in the preseason with Tim Anderson is that with hitters like this, because they don't walk at all, their batting average actually means more when they have a good batting average. So just something to keep in mind in Oscar Gonzalez if you do need help in that category. A few middle infielders I wanted to mention. Christian Arroyo went 2 for 4 with his 5th home run. He added 3 RBI in 9 games since returning from the IL. He's batting near 500, 90.3 mile per hour average exit velocity. Aledmus Diaz went 1 for 4 with a grand slam. It was his 10th home run. His last 26 games, he's hitting .309 with 7 homers, 10 doubles, 17 RBI. He's been great for the Astros, plays every position except catcher on CBS. Paul DeJong, back-to-back games with a homer. He now has 4 home runs in 8 games since returning to the Cardinals. And Michael Chavis went 2 for 4 with a double dong. He is up to 12 home runs. Chris, do you like any of these if you need a middle infielder in deeper leagues?
It would be something if the Cardinals figured out how to get Paul DeJong right again, but it's been such a long time that I'm pretty skeptical of it. His minor league production this year is, what's that?
I was going to say it's a small sample size, but since returning, 96 mile per hour average exit velocity.
Yeah. He struck out 52 times in 51 games in the minors, which isn't a terrible rate. 52 times out of 230 plate appearances is below a 25% strikeout rate, I'm pretty sure. So he was hitting for power down there. It's interesting, but I'm filing it under more something to keep an eye on in most mixed leagues than anything else. But I think he's probably the most interesting of this group.
He's, if nothing else, DeJong is incredibly steamy right now. 10 home runs in his past 18 games, majors and minors included. I made sure he was rostered in at least my 15-team roto leagues, and I may have picked him up in a 12-team roto too. I agree with Chris that it warrants great skepticism, but who could you pick up off waivers right now? Who doesn't? Yeah.
No love for Aledmus Diaz the way he's played over the past month or so.
There's value in the positional eligibility that he has, and given that he's playing well, but. It's his last 26 games, you said? Last 27 games?
Yeah.
How many games has that been for the Astros? It's probably been something like 35 or 40 games.
He sits out every 3rd or 4th game from what I could garner there. But it is cheap exposure to one of the best lineups in baseball. So if he is available in 15 teamers, I would take a look there on Aledmus Diaz. Before we hit the break, just want to remind everyone, if you're listening on Spotify, help us out with a 5-star rating. We really do appreciate it. Same thing on Apple. If you do leave a rating, you could also drop a question or a Team Name Tuesday in the review, and we will read it on an upcoming episode. Let's take a break, and we'll be back right after this. The news and notes. Bryce Harper has not regained as much flexibility in his thumb as anticipated and is not yet ready to face pitchers. Recent reports had Harper returning in September, but we shall see. Once we get more news, we'll let you know. Julio Rodriguez is expected to return this Friday. He's been out since July 31st with soreness in his right wrist. Tim Anderson was placed on the IL with a torn ligament in his left hand. and is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. Scott, is it okay to drop Tim Anderson in leagues without an IL spot?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you're left with a couple weeks that he's going to contribute. If you play in such a league, which you shouldn't, but I know certain high-profile providers, you can only set up your league without IL spots. Then you might have to drop him.
Scott, also any interest in Lennon Sosa? He's someone I know you liked earlier in the season, and he was recalled here on Tuesday. He went 2 for 4 with his first home run, I believe first career home run in game
428 feet.
Yeah, that was a shot.
Imagine hitting one that far.
I know.
Can't.
I don't know what you're getting at, Chris. What am I missing?
I didn't think there was any chance Frank got that one. I wasn't sure about it. Is it John Lennon?
Oh gosh, yeah, it's way over the head. Anyway, with Lennon Sosa for the minors this season.
Okay. Okay.
We're all
Lennon.
just kind of getting it like 30 seconds later. In the minors this season, 316 batting average, 16 homers, 878 OPS, 3% rostered. Scott, anything here with Lennon Sosa?
Maybe. I'd rather pick up somebody like Paul DeYoung over him. He got called up initially straight from AA, where he had incredible numbers, and then went back down to AAA, and the numbers were not so incredible. And I've noticed that happening with a lot of prospects this year. Like the leap from AA to AAA, it seems like it's been bigger than we remember it being. And I wonder if that has to do with the restructuring of the minor leagues now. Like low A is,
do they use are they using robo umps in every league now, or is it only certain ones? Because that could also be like,
I don't know.
From what I've gathered, the robo umps have like caused real like adjustment periods for players. So
I don't know if that, I mean, it might be, I don't know the answer to your question, but the talent distribution across the minor leaguers is different now because they've gotten rid of some of the lower levels. So I don't know if we should continue to treat AA like, if a player can hit a AA, then AAA is just, it's superfluous at that point. But anyway, back to Lennon Sosa. Keep an eye on it, see how much he plays, see how well he hits. It's not like he was a high-end prospect coming into the year, so the production was pretty surprising at AA. But we'll keep an eye on it.
This is weird. The AAA East, which is what used to be the International League, the AAA East League, only uses automatic balls and strikes in Charlotte, which is where the White Sox play. So, his plate discipline has gotten much worse, and maybe there's something to that idea I just pulled out of my rear.
All right. Well, oh man, between losing shifts and it's not going to be next year, but I think eventually we are going to have robo umps in Major League Baseball. It's going to be very tough to kind of.
Oh, we're going to have to adjust a lot of our, I was just, who was it we were talking about? The Bubba Thompson guy has 49 steals with 3 caught stealing this year. In 20 fewer games than he had the previous year when he had like 25 steals. It's just like the stolen base totals in the minors are bonkers, and we're going to get those rules in the majors at some point. And we're just going to have to like really, really recalibrate our expectations for a lot of things. It's going to be weird, but we're used to that at this point. We're used to every April running around with our heads cut off like chickens the last couple of seasons.
That sure is true. So this will be no different moving forward. I know we usually get to bullpens later on, but this Padres game is pretty wild. Josh Hader came in with a 3-run lead in the top of the 9th. He gave up 3 runs, blew the game. Then in the bottom of the 9th, Manny Machado goes out and hits a 3-run walk-off home run off of Tyler Rogers. So just pretty crazy game there out in San Diego.
Don't trade for closers.
Right. Trevor Story has resumed swinging a bat, which is a positive step forward with that hairline fracture in his right wrist. He remains without a timetable for now. Tanner Houck was placed on the IL with lower back inflammation, retroactive to August 6th, which kind of came out of nowhere. Chris, who are you thinking kind of takes over for saves here in Boston? Garrett Whitlock, John Schreiber?
I feel like there's probably a pretty good chance for Whitlock, but they haven't really given him the full endorsement at various points this season. They've kind of always seemed to be looking for a different role. So I wouldn't be surprised if that stayed in a similar situation now, especially because he's, a multi-inning guy. Teams like to keep flexibility there.
And Schreiber's been great this year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I could see him getting the bulk of the saves, but I do think Whitlock will factor too when they want him to go, when they're looking for him to cover the 8th and 9th.
Yeah, he worked the 8th and the 9th today in a tie game. So, right? Yeah.
Yep. All right. What do we got next? Oh, fire up the random baseball injury alarm because Chris Sale underwent season-ending surgery on Monday to repair a fractured wrist, which he suffered in a bicycle accident over the weekend. So it's just like one thing after another for Chris Sale. It's been
a real. He was wearing a helmet.
Just like when you say bicycle accident, it wasn't like a dirt bike, wasn't like a motorbike, wasn't even like a moped, just a bicycle.
Yeah, I mean, that would have to be pretty bad to break your wrist, right? Like just on a bicycle.
I don't know. I feel like if I just fell off a bike, I could break my wrist pretty easily.
Well, please don't do that, Chris.
I'd rather try not to. I bike a lot.
The Red Sox said that Chris Sale, quote, should be fine and ready to go for spring training next season.
I have no idea how you have any faith in him next season.
Jack Flaherty will begin a rehab assignment at AAA on Wednesday, and they have been optimistic on him recently. And speaking of optimism, the Yankees thought that Anthony Rizzo would be back here on Tuesday, but he was not and has now missed 5 straight games with a back injury. Jesse Winker not in the lineup Tuesday after leaving Monday's game with back spasms himself. Franmil Reyes was thrown right into the Cubs lineup, batting 5th here on Tuesday. I think he finished that game with just 1 hit. Matt Carpenter was placed on the IL with a fracture in his foot. Miguel Andujar was recalled, and he started as a designated hitter for the Yankees on Tuesday night. Orlando Arcia is headed to the IL with a hamstring injury. Sixto Sanchez will throw 2 innings in a simulated game on Saturday, but is not expected to return this season. Chris, would you be looking to buy Sanchez in Dynasty? I understand that it's risky. He's dealt with shoulder injuries. Scary stuff for a pitcher, no doubt about it. But I think you might be able to get Sixto Sanchez for like a pretty suppressed cost. What do you think?
It would have to be really, really cheap. I wouldn't want to give up anything that I'm counting on for next season for him, just because it's been 2 full seasons since we've seen him throw a pitch. There have been concerns about his conditioning in that time. There have been concerns about his arm strength, when he's, the rare times he's been healthy. So my expectations are very, very muted for Sixto Sanchez right now, unfortunately.
Mike Moustakas went on the IL with a calf strain, and I do have some prospect updates. Rockies outfielder Zach Veen was promoted to AA. Rangers third base prospect Josh Young was promoted. I guess not promoted. He joined AAA on Tuesday, making his season debut at that affiliate. He recently was in the Arizona Complex League. A's catcher prospect Shea Langoliers, who came over in the Matt Olson trade, should see a late season promotion, though I'm not sure what that means for Sean Murphy. Maybe he just moves over to DH or plays a little first base for them. And Tigers outfield prospect Kerry Carpenter will be promoted on Wednesday. This season in the minors, he was batting .313 with 30 homers, a 1025 OPS. He is only 2% rostered. Scott, do you have any takes here on these last 2 items? Shea Langoliers maybe getting the call later on in the season, and Kerry Carpenter joining the Tigers on Wednesday.
I think the expectation especially for a catcher, and Shea Langoliers offensively, he's not near on the level like an Adley Rutschman or anything, though he has had a strong season in the minors this year. I think the expectation is that he'll struggle, and yeah, with Sean Murphy there, you wonder exactly what the playing time distribution would be anyway, if it's just kind of a chance to get his feet wet, and maybe they look to trade Murphy in the offseason. Something like that. I wouldn't have especially high hopes for Langoliers making a fantasy impact. Kerry Carpenter is interesting. He made changes to his swing this offseason, and it seemed to pay big dividends just in the month of August at AAA. 417 with 3 home runs in 7 games. So they're bringing him up when he's red hot. But the home run total has been huge from the beginning. Season started at AA. He hasn't gotten a lot of prospect hype. 24-year-old, pretty much limited to a corner spot. So it's kind of the profile that you could understand getting passed over, kind of like I've been saying for Michael Massey. And sometimes I feel like it kind of, for these guys who kind of spring up out of nowhere, it takes an off season for these prospect evaluators to kind of recalibrate their thinking and open up to the idea that, yeah, maybe he is a real asset now. So yeah, in some of those deeper 5 outfielder leagues, I'd probably be, making a claim for Carpenter already. That's Kerry Carpenter, just to see what happens. And everyone else should have him on the scout team to see if he can continue this massive home run production or something close to it in the majors.
And hopefully it could serve as a shot in the arm for the Tigers too, because their lineup has just been brutal all season long. So we'll see if Kerry Carpenter could help get them back on track. Let's get back into Tuesday's action. I mentioned we have a lot of pitching duds here to talk about, and I'll just kind of run through the list, and we'll start with you, Chris, and you could kind of tell me if there's anyone on this list that you're actually worried about. But we'll start with Braxton Garrett, who did not pass his first test of the week. We know recently he had 4 starts come against the Pirates and the Reds, respectively, so some good matchups there. But he was at the Phillies, where he gave up 4 runs. 3 of those were earned over 4 2/3 innings pitched. Jose Urquidy's 9-game quality start streak came to an end. He was up against the Rangers. He gave up 5 runs, including 3 homers over 5 innings pitched. Martin Perez was hit with a regression start on the other side of that game at the Houston Astros. He gave up 7 runs over 5 innings pitched. Charlie Morton, I understand if you look at the larger picture, I guess, the past 2 months, Morton has still been very good, but he's alternating good and bad starts his last 5 outings. It's just frustrating, frankly. He gave up 5 runs over 6 innings pitched, 3 homers allowed in this outing. Lance Lynn has yet to put together back-to-back quality starts. He was at the Royals. He gave up 4 runs over 6 innings. And then Joe Ryan hit hard at the Dodgers. He gave up 6 runs, 5 of those earned over 5 innings pitched. So lots of names here, Chris. Ryan, Lynn, Morton, Perez, Urquidy, Garrett. Anyone that you are particularly worried about from this group?
Garrett, just because it's hard to know who he is. He's been very good against some very good matchups. He's been, a little iffy against some other matchups. There have been some very, very good signs, but all in all, like you look at the overall picture and it's like pretty good strikeout rate, pretty good walk rate, pretty good ground ball rate. It doesn't really stand out anywhere except slider swinging strike rate. His slider whiff rate is very, very good. He gets a lot of whiffs with that pitch, but everything else, like he's added velocity with his fastball, but even then it's still below average, even for a lefty. So my sense is that he's pretty good, but not great, which, would make him an SP5 or SP6 in the parlance of our game. But, I don't know. It's a squishy projection from me. I'm not sure I trust it one way or the other.
I think Braxton Garrett, just kind of based on where we have him ranked, like borderline top 70s, top 75 starting pitcher. That's kind of who he is. He's a streamer right now. You want to use him in the right matchups, but he was at the Phillies in this one. They are hot right now. And then he gets the Braves this weekend, a team that absolutely crushes lefties. So frankly, I don't really have a lot of faith for Braxton.
Well, he's sometimes when we refer to streamers, we're referring to somebody. I don't know who's one of those guys we were talking about yesterday.
Like a Keegan Thompson, for example.
Yeah, sometimes Braxton Garrett's better than that. He's not must start. So in that sense, I guess he's a streamer, but like he deserves to be rostered. And this is, we've said all along, this is a big test for him this week after back-to-back starts against the Pirates, followed by back-to-back starts against the Reds. What will happen against 2 good lineups this week? And so far the first one was a dud. I will point out that obviously you shouldn't abandon him after the first misstep. A. B. His slider velocity in this start was down 1.5 miles per hour. And like part of the explanation for Braxton Garrett's improvement this year is that the velocity had gone up on everything, including on that slider. So I don't know if he just didn't have it today, and maybe that's another reason he deserves a pass. But yeah, maintain a healthy skepticism on Braxton Garrett, but don't pack it in just yet.
Okay. Anything else we'd like to add, Scott, on these other names? Jose Urquidy, Martin Perez, our good old friend Charlie Morton, Lance Lynn.
He's good. You know, it just he's not an ace. I think is that's the way I look at Charlie Morton. Is like he's not an ace anymore, which means that like 5 good starts, 1 bad start. Like that's not necessarily. I don't know if that's exactly the ratio, but like that happens. I think it's kind of coming to grips with the reality that he's not the guy we thought he would be, but he's not a disaster either.
Yeah, I think at this point, I don't know that Charlie Morton will even be back next year, but I think the expectation for me at least is that he's closer to like a high 3s ERA at this point with a really good strikeout rate, which is a serviceable probably SP3, but you just kind of have to recalibrate what we expected coming into the season, obviously, which makes sense. It's August. But anything else you'd like to add, Scott? Lance Lynn, Joe Ryan were the other names there too.
Yeah, I'm kind of just in a holding pattern. I think with all of these guys, it's been kind of an on again, off again situation for Joe Ryan too. He had what I think in his previous start 5 shutout innings with 9 strikeouts against a bad lineup, maybe the Tigers, I want to say, and then that's sandwiched in between 2 miserable starts against great offenses. And because he's a fly ball pitcher, I think he's always going to be susceptible to these blow ups. You don't want them to be too often, obviously, like we've seen with Josiah Gray. But I'm not ready to say Joe Ryan is going down that path. And I still have a little more hope Charlie Morton's going to go on a run, sort of like he did last year. It looked like it was beginning, and then there's been a couple missteps recently, but there's still a lot to like in that profile.
And I think Lance Lynn is probably fine. Not an ace or a borderline ace, kind of like Charlie Morton, not as many strikeouts, obviously, different type of pitcher, but he's probably good. He's probably not great.
Mm-hmm. He's getting hit hard this year. That's the biggest difference I've seen is Lance Lynn is giving up a lot of hard contact this year. He's in the 18th percentile,
which is something he's been very good at in the past.
Yeah, so that has been a big difference there for Lance Lynn this season. A few struggling hitters I wanted to ask you guys about really over the last 30 games for each of these hitters. JD Martinez during that stretch, 188 batting average with 1 home run. I was watching the Red Sox game, which was also Charlie Morton's start, so sorry, everybody. But JD Martinez, he has 9 homers on the year. I was like, when did this happen? I didn't realize he slowed down this much, but he really has. A couple other names. Marcell Ozuna in that same game, his last 30 games, he's batting 179. Does have 5 home runs, so helps out a little bit, but batting average has been brutal for him. And Jeremy Pena, who got off to a blistering start this year, his last 30, he still has 6 homers, which helps, but a 210 batting average. If you limit that to his last 15, he's down to a 169 batting average during that time. So, Scott, I don't think we're dropping any of these. Maybe Pena in like a points league, like a really shallow league.
Yeah,
but
I think Pena is pretty fringy in a points league or any league that doesn't have a middle infield spot to fill.
Yep.
This is the way he's performed recently is more like I thought his rookie season would go. With JD Martinez, in like a 3 outfielder league, I don't think he's undroppable either. I think, gosh, the guy's 34 now. His, all his quality of contact numbers are down this year. Like it may just, and remember, he had a bad second half last year too. We may be seeing the beginning of the end for him. And I think there's a chance in a 12-team 3 outfielder league, you might be able to you might fare better just kind of streaming a 3rd outfielder off the waiver wire.
All righty. I was about to ask Chris about Marcell Ozuna, but he is gone, so I cannot ask him about Marcell Ozuna. Scott, do you feel the same way? Ozuna, like the same way as you do about JD for Ozuna, where he might be droppable in a 3 outfielder league?
Yeah, I do. I think they're pretty much in the same boat there. I might actually have a little more confidence in Martinez than Ozuna, but
okay.
5 outfielder league, you're probably stuck with them.
All right, let's move back.
You're going deeper in the pool.
Let's move back over to pitching here, and wanted to just evaluate Freddy Peralta, his second start back from the IL. He goes 5 innings against the Tampa Bay Rays. He gives up 2 hits, 2 runs, 4 strikeouts to 0 walks, had 10 swinging strikes on 65 pitches, which is a good ratio. But a few things here, Scott. That's now 2 starts since coming back. Like, maybe they're just building him up, Freddy Peralta this is. But 67 and 65 pitches, respectively, in each of those starts. And his fastball velocity was down 1.1 miles per hour in this start. And it's down almost 2 miles per hour compared to last year. So how are you handling Freddy Peralta right now?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of the velocity, because remember, this was a second start back. Velocity was down. First start back, velocity was way up. So, that kind of scratches off the possibility that, he's still dealing with the injury, and is he going to regain his velocity? I think he's shown he can throw that hard still, and maybe just it isn't for whatever reason. Maybe so that he can go deeper into the game. I don't know. I feel pretty good about Freddy Peralta still. I'm glad he made it back as early as he did, so that he still has time to build up and make an impact for my fantasy team. And I still trust him to do that, even though the velocity was down a little in this start.
All right, now let's get into some of the studs from Tuesday's action. Quite the pitching duel between Garrett Cole and Luis Castillo. That game is actually still going on. They're in the bottom of the 11th. If anything drastic happens, I'll let you know. But Garrett Cole, obviously at the Mariners, 7 shutout. Nice little bounce back for him after a rough outing last time. He gave up 4 hits, 0 walks, 8 strikeouts, only 9 swinging strikes. I thought that was interesting. And Luis Castillo on the other side. Now his first 2 starts with the Mariners have both come against the Yankees, and he was awesome in this one. 8 shutout, 3 hits, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, 20 swinging strikes for Luis Castillo on 110 pitches. The one thing that stood out to me, Scott, he did throw more sinkers than 4-seam fastballs 2 starts in a row, and I really like that he was throwing his 4-seam more over the past really like month, 2 months. But it's hard to argue when the results are this good, so I don't really know if it matters.
Yeah, I agree with every word.
All right.
Just enjoy the ride, I think.
For sure. Some other pitching studs, part 1. Zach Wheeler with a strong start up against the Marlins. 6 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, 20 swinging strikes in that start. Shane Bieber now with 3 strong starts in a row. He was at the Tigers. 7 innings, 7 shutout innings, 4 hits, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts for him. And then Joe Musgrove gets back on track. It's been a bit of a rough go recently. He goes 7 innings, 1 run, 4 strikeouts up against the Giants. Scott, anything on these 3? Musgrove, Bieber, Zach Wheeler?
Not really. We did point out after Musgrove's last start that it seemed like maybe he was encountering some regression, that he really is a low 3s ERA pitcher and not what he's been for most of the season. But yeah, it's good to see the trend reverse itself, and maybe his production will level off from this point forward, keeping him a must-start pitcher for sure, but maybe not like a clear-cut ace.
I really wish Zach Wheeler didn't have that shoulder thing in spring training, Scott, because I was all in. Yeah, I wanted to draft as much Zach Wheeler as I possibly could, and then I kind of shied away.
Yep. But I got him for some discounts.
He's been incredible, Zach Wheeler has this season, and I'm excited to kind of carry this into next year. And I think he'll probably be something like a 2nd-round pick, and Zach Wheeler is well worth it. Pitching studs part 2. Shohei Ohtani with another quality start at the Oakland A's. He went 6 shutout with 5 strikeouts in this one. Just incredible numbers. 2.68 ERA, 105 whip, 157 strikeouts over 111 innings pitched for Shohei Ohtani. Carlos Carrasco, yeah, I'm including him in the studs the way he's pitching right now, because he was up against the Reds, 6 2/3, 2 runs allowed, 9 strikeouts in this one. Last 7 starts for Carrasco, 1.71 ERA, about a strikeout per inning, 50% ground ball rate, and a near 15% swinging strike rate. He has been awesome. And Julio Urias, Another just really strong outing against the Minnesota Twins. 7 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts to 0 walks for him. Anything you'd like to add here, Scott? Ohtani, Carrasco, and Arias.
Yeah, I think Carrasco has emerged as a must-start pitcher, at least for now. It's been kind of a rocky ride getting to this point, but through it all, the 2 stats I would say I trust the most. 2 of the stats I trust the most. The swinging strike rate and the xFIP have remained strong for him, and that seems to be bearing fruit now.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is a bit of a hot take, Scott, but 2 pitchers that are trending in opposite directions, I would rather start Carrasco than I would Pablo Lopez or Lance Lynn right now.
Oh no, I don't think that's a hot take at all. Okay. Especially Pablo Lopez. I benched Pablo Lopez even in those 15-team leagues. I had him in a couple of those and benched him. I just think, as we've endured stretches like this with Charlie Morton and Jose Barrios, and this year, I think we're there with Pablo Lopez too, where he's got to re-earn our trust.
Maybe this gentleman is not a stud, but he is pitching very well. Brady Singer got back on track after a subpar outing last week. He was up against the White Sox, 7 1/3, 1 run, 6 strikeouts to 0 walks. He lowers his season ERA to 3.49, and he could be still out there in some shallower leagues. He's 79% rostered. That is Brady Singer. Anything here with these 2, Scott? Tyler Alexander has allowed exactly 2 earned runs in 3 straight starts. He was up against the Guardians. He went 7 innings, 2 runs, only 2 strikeouts, and he is SPARP eligible, only 2% rostered, is Tyler Alexander. And then Tommy Henry had a strong start. He pitches for the Diamondbacks up against the Pirates, 7 innings, 1 run, only 3 strikeouts. And in the minors this season, a 3.83 ERA, 1.34 whip, less than a strikeout per inning. Anything with these 2, Tommy Henry, Tyler Alexander?
I don't think there is. No.
All right. Fair enough. Some hitting leftovers. Austin Riley went 3 for 6, finished a double short of the cycle, hit his 30th home run. He added 5 RBI, now up to 74 RBI on the season. Just incredible stuff for Austin Riley. The 11th overall player in Roto entering Tuesday, and the 8th best hitter in points leagues also entering Tuesday. So I imagine he'll just move up.
I'm surprised it's better in points because the one knock on him is like the walk rate is on the low side, the strikeout rate a little on the high side. You'd think it hurt him in that format.
Mm-hmm. It might just be a lack of steals, I guess, for Roto.
But bringing him down in Roto, yeah, I guess that could be it.
Corey Seager and Marcus Semien both homered in the same game. It was Seager's 25th. It was Marcus Semien 16th. Bo Bichette had a double dong that brings him to 17 homers for the season. Ronald Acuna went 3 for 5 with his 24th steal and 3 runs scored. Post All-Star break for Acuna, he's batting .302 with 4 steals, but still just 1 homer. So we're waiting patiently for that power, which obviously we do need from Ronald Acuna. Shohei Ohtani went 2 for 3 with his 25th home run to go along with his great pitching performance. And Scott, I know you had a stat on Max Muncy, who hit his, I believe, 12th home run, and he's been coming around the last 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, it's a small sample, but last 13 games, 276 with 3 home runs. I mean, it's telling that we're celebrating a guy hitting 276 over a 13-game stretch is this big turnaround. But I think the more notable stat during that 13-game stretch is that Muncy's average exit velocity is close to 95 miles per hour, which would be very, very high end if that is something he sustained over a full season. So maybe he's starting to get a little bit of that strength back in the elbow, and we're starting to see him get back to being the Max Muncy we know and love. It's still early to conclude that, obviously, but there are at least some early signs that may be happening.
I'm sorry, the Yankees are caught in like a crazy rundown right now, and I got so distracted. I apologize, Scott, but man, that is just really, really bad base running. Anyway, yes, Max Muncy could be coming back here. He's still 91% rostered, so people have held on throughout the aches and pains when it comes to
like the Dodgers and just keep running them out there.
Oh gosh, I failed epically on today's podcast, Scott, because I made JT Realmuto the YouTube thumbnail and I'm not getting it to him until like the final minutes of the podcast. I just wanted to point out he's been incredible over his last 31 games. 2 hits, including his 13th home run here on Tuesday. His last 31 games, I was supposed to add Tuesday's action here, but that would bring him to, I think he went 2 for 4. That would make 36 for 111. He's batting well over 300. That's all you need to know over his last 31 games. 10 homers during that time for Real Muto. 30 RBI, 5 steals, crushing the ball, 92.8 mile per hour average exit velocity, 16% barrel rate. You told me, a month or two ago, Scott, I would say Real Muto has been a bust and that he's declining in the power department. And since
I don't know that I used the B word, but yeah, I said he clearly seems to be in decline now, and I guess he heard me say that and is trying to prove he's not. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how he finishes out the season, if he can get back to being one of the top 3 catchers drafted next year. I'm still skeptical that's going to happen, but it's nice to see that he can still find that extra gear every now and then.
Francisco Lindor went 1 for 4 with his 20th home run, and post All-Star break, he is hitting 373 with 4 homers and a 1076 OPS. The call to the bullpen, we'll start with the Royals in game 1 of their doubleheader. Scott Barlow entered in the 8th inning with a 3-run lead. Runners on first and second. He got both Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez out, and then Jose Cuas recorded the final 2 outs for his first save of the season. In game 2, Liam Hendricks gave up a run, but picked up his 23rd save. For the Guardians, Emmanuel Clase recorded the final out for his 25th save. For the Phillies, 3-run lead. David Robertson pitched in the 8th inning, facing the heart of the Marlins lineup, 4, 5, and 6. And then Sir Anthony Dominguez pitched in the 9th, picked up his 7th save. There have been 2 saves since Robertson came over. Robertson has 1. Sir Anthony Dominguez has the other. And I don't know, Scott. I kind of just thought Robertson was going to be the guy.
Yeah.
Based on how that first save went, but maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. And there hasn't. So the Phillies interim manager, Rob Thompson, right? I think that's his name.
I think so, yeah.
I didn't see a direct quote from him, but according to the Phillies MLB.com beat writer, Thompson said that he would continue to work Dominguez and Brad Hand in the 9th inning. And then, later that day, Robertson worked the 9th inning, or maybe it was the next day, worked the 9th inning and got the save. And I think Dominguez set up for him in that game, right?
Yeah.
That same beat writer in the write-up of that game reiterated that normally Dominguez and Hand are going to work the 9th. So again, he didn't include direct quotes from Rob Thompson, and that's always a dicey situation because you're relying on someone to interpret what was said for you. But reporters generally do a good job. And and so I think advantage Dominguez here, but I wouldn't be so quick to drop Robertson.
For the Brewers, Taylor Rogers apparently was sidelined with a knee injury, and I suppose Devin Williams was unavailable because he did not pitch in this game. He last pitched on Sunday. They had a day off on Monday, but Devin Williams has pitched a lot recently, so I think they're probably just giving him a day off. Matt Bush was the one who pitched in the 9th inning, and he picked up the save here for the Brewers. For the Nationals, Kyle Finnegan entered in the 7th with a 4-2 lead, runners on first and third. He gave up 4 hits. The Cubs took a 5-4 lead. The Nationals then retook the lead in the 8th inning of that game. Carl Edwards recorded the final 4 outs for his first save. And I believe this is now 2 appearances in a row, Scott, where Kyle Finnegan is just coming in the biggest situation and not necessarily pitching the 9th inning. So I don't feel great.
Not pitching well this time. I actually picked up Carl Edwards in a couple of those 15-team roto leagues where saves are always in high demand, and I'm feeling pretty good about that right now. Like I think he's better than Kyle Finnegan, and now that he's gotten their last 2 saves, right? The Nationals' last 2 saves. I think he's.
I know that previous game he pitched the 9th inning, but it wasn't a save opportunity. Carl Edwards.
Oh, he didn't actually get the save in that one?
No, I think it might have been a 4-run lead.
Okay.
But
Well,
yes,
well, anyway, I think he's like a low key pickup for saves right now.
oh man, you should have told me, Scott, because I could use some saves in a few deeper leagues, man.
I mean, it could be wrong. I have not been the closer whisperer this year, not by a long shot.
Yeah. In my main event league, I'm desperate for saves. I added Eric Swanson just kind of on a whim. He's picked up a few saves.
I picked him up too.
And then Joe Mantiply, but might feel better about Carl Edwards right now. For the Astros, Ryan Presley picked up his 22nd save. For the Orioles, Felix Bautista picked up his 6th save. And man, just shout out to the Orioles. They are 58-52. Depending on what happens to the Mariners in this game, they could be tied for a wild card spot. And they're over under. Their betting win total coming into the season was 62.5 for the Orioles. They are at 58 wins. Incredible stuff. They've been awesome. It's been really fun to watch. Last one I wanted to mention, the Diamondbacks. Mark Melancon was back in there. Ian Kennedy pitched yesterday, and Melancon picked up his 16th save. To stream or not to stream for Wednesday, we have Jeffrey Springs at the Brewers, Justin Steele versus the Nationals, Jacob Junis at the Padres, Aaron Savali at the Tigers, Johnny Cueto at the Royals, Chris Bubich versus the White Sox, Mitch Keller at the Diamondbacks, Madison Bumgarner versus the Pirates, and Paul Blackburn versus the Angels.
Do I trust Paul Blackburn against the Angels? It's hard to trust. It's hard to trust him right now, but it's against the Angels. I think Johnny Cueto at Kansas City's the clear favorite here. But others like Mitch Keller at Arizona, Justin Steele versus Washington, Jeffrey Springs at Milwaukee, and maybe even Blackburn against the Angels. You could at least think about it if you're dead set on maximizing volume.
On Thursday, Edward Cabrera at the Phillies, Kyle Gibson versus the Marlins, Zach Plesac at the Tigers, Zach Greinke versus the White Sox, JT Brubaker at the Diamondbacks, Drew Smyly at the Reds, and Nick Lodolo versus the Cubs.
So I'm most confident recommending Nick Lodolo, even coming off a bad start, and Kyle Gibson against the Marlins. If you're feeling lucky, you could roll the dice on Edward Cabrera potentially, as well as Zach Plesac with that very favorable matchup against the Tigers. I would probably steer clear of them myself, but just you got to consider your needs, I guess.
Fortune favors the brave on Edward Cabrera and Zach Plesac. But the last time we said that, we all got Yusei Kikuchi'd. So just keep that in mind. We're going to wrap there. For Scott, I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.